Yeah, I'd like to discuss a little bit about some of the work that I've been doing with the old people in my community where I was born and brought up. This work started a few years ago, about 7 years ago today, and it started one time during the celebration of the first day of the year. I traveled home to see my parents. It happened that I went through a path that I normally don't go through, but I stopped by to see an old lady that I knew who was one of the members of the community. And I remember this woman when I was growing up. She was a wife of a teacher, and of course a wife of a teacher in the village stood out in many ways. So when I stopped by to say hello to her, I found this lady in her 90s sitting alone in the house. It was a timber houses with the holes. You could see she was cold. And here it was a celebration of the first day of the year. So I requested if she could go with me to my parents' home for a meal. She was very hesitant, but I persuaded her. I was with my daughter, Wandia, and we convinced her that she did not need to walk because we would put her in the car and would drive over to my house, which was about less than a kilometer away from where she was located. When we arrived at my home, my father was sitting alone in the sitting room because my mother had gone to the neighbor where they had again this celebration. And since my parents were invited as a couple and my father was not able to walk there, he had requested my mother to represent both of them. So when I walked in and my father saw this woman, he immediately brightened up. Of course, they are age mates. And when they brightened up, then the next thing he did was that they started chatting. Where have you been? How have you been? All kind of questions. And they kept on talking non-stop. I engaged myself in food preparation, and as I was preparing the meal, they were just busy talking. Something that was non-stop. When I finally brought the meal, you could hardly make them stop to eat. And I noticed that they were very happy, but some of the questions they were asking each other were interesting. Oh, how about so-and-so? And oh, I don't know, I heard he was sick. I don't know whether he recovered. I don't know whether he's still alive or dead. And so the questions were about people that they knew in the neighborhood and not having any news, current news about them. So they were happy talking about their past, their life, and they went on and on and on. So at about 6 o'clock when it was getting a bit dark, I wanted to leave. But I realized that by leaving, I would have cut short their conversation. So I requested my father, if he could arrange with someone to take her home, because I would rather leave her behind so that they can continue. They both quickly agreed that it was a good idea. And so when I left them, before I left, I asked my father, I have noted how happy that you are together, and I noted the kind of questions you're asking each other was about people that you knew so well, but you did not know about their status because you hardly can walk to see each other because of your physical condition. I noted that you are both isolated from each other and how happy and cheerful you are when you saw each other. Would it be okay if you allow me to be using your home at least once a month to bring together all the people in their 80s in this neighborhood so that at least they can experience what I have noted that you both experienced today? My father quickly said yes, and from there I made an arrangement to be cooking, bringing the food, and organizing that one day a month get together. The message was passed around, and I found a man who was willing to go and pick them from their home, because some of them even walking out of the doorstep to the car was like a journey. The day one when they came together, they were so excited. They were so happy. One of them cried, shed tears when he shook hands to a person he has not seen for 10 years. Yet he is within less than a kilometer away from each other. So I was so touched by the reaction. They talked about their childhood. I remember this about you. I remember this about you. They were talking more about growing up together, what their life was like. We had a nice meal, and of course the meal that I had prepared was in consideration of the kind of diet most of the old people like to eat. As they were eating and as they were chatting, I realized that they were talking more about the past, not present, not about the future. Stories that were very interesting to me. Of course, the plan was that I give them a meal, and each one take a small envelope of some money to buy some small gift for themselves once a month. This have gone on for quite some time. And at one point, when I was sharing this experience with somebody, that was a year later, he told me that he left his home from a rural home and he moved to the urban area because he was often attacked by thugs. And when he left his home, he allowed the neighbors in his area, old people, to come and make soaps and things that they were doing like tie and dye, things that could help them to produce some items for sale. And so he told me that once a year, he normally give them a goat to celebrate. And so we agreed after the discussion that my group can join them as a get-together. Of course, this is a different district. And so when I shared the news with my old people, they were very excited. We were supposed to have left there at 11 o'clock in the morning, but from 8 in the morning, those who could walk to my parents' home, they had already arrived. Others were sending messages asking, what happened? Did I forget them? When we got there, we were in this minibus, and as we were getting off the minibus, I requested the old people from that home, from that area, to go to the bus, welcome those people, and greet each person, and take a partner and walk them to the seats to welcome them. That was very interesting because most of them, you see them choosing by the looks. Could see an old man looking for this bright-skinned girl, woman, and as if and you could see him proudly walking with her as if he's having a little girl to the seat. And of course, you could see some women who are shy being picked by the men. So it was interesting to see the scenario where the behavior were like teenagers together. So it was very interesting. Then I told them that what I like to do after we had sat down and had a drink is that each one is going now to introduce their partner and tell me a little bit about their partner. What was interesting is that when their turn came, somebody will say, yes, we found out that we were in the same detention camp. This was during the Mau Mau time. And we talked about that camp, all the incident that we saw there. But then they would ask each other, but what did you tell me your name was? So they forgot the name, but they remember the incident where they were together in the detention camps. After that, during that ceremony, they were treated like very special guests. They were given nice meal, and then before we left, they were given gifts and a new blanket each. Even today, I'm reminded about that visit. We were very happy, and I really enjoyed that trip. So what had been happening from that time, I have often invited a friend. Whenever I have get together, I'll invite a friend from Nairobi, from the city, and I'll say, come over, and I'll tell them a little bit of what I do, and I'll say, I'd like you to come and give a talk to these people. What I have noted is that almost everyone that I have invited from various districts have felt that this is a challenge to me. I like to do something similar to my community. So various people have started a different kind of a setup in their own community where they bring together old people. And one of them has been telling me, oh, you know, my 15 people, 3 of them has passed on. Oh, I'm heading home now to take the envelope for my people. So there is that impact that it is making to the rest of the members of the surroundings communities. One interesting thing that I have noted is that the things that they discuss are things that you can never read from any book. These people are like walking books. They tell me incidents that are very, very interesting. If I can highlight one of the incidents that they shared, was I remember one time they were sharing the incident where in the early 60s there were 2 spies that were murdered within a few meters from where we normally meet. And I wanted to ask a bit of clarification of what had really happened that day, because I remember that there was a lot of bloodshed and we were little kids and we were hidden. So then each one would tell me their view of what happened. It happened that those 2 men had come to the community. They were supposed to spy the people who had taken oath in the community. And so as soon as those 2, the people in the community noted them, they say, here they are, here they are. And people chased them. They were on bicycle. The first one who was arrested was beaten, but he ran into the classroom and he was hiding there. When he was hiding in the classroom, the mob came for him, but the headmaster of the school begged them, please don't kill him in front of the school children because it will be such a trauma. So when they listened to his plea, they allowed the kids to be taken home. And so this man was murdered, and his head was hanging with what do you call the shovel, which cut his neck, and he was hung around the tree. And then the other one, they chased him and they got hold of him and they also killed him. So the reaction was the district officer came, and there was a plane. When the message went back to what had happened, there was a plane that was flew very low with a message: everybody to come out of their homes and to line up seated at the school field. That was the only big open field that people could gather together. So, and ideally they were supposed to be sat in lines so that in order to save the bullets, because they were to be sprayed with the bullets, but instead of spraying the bullet and scattering them and wasting them, they would be shooting lines like that. So then the scenario really shook everybody. Most of the people had nowhere to go hiding. So this one woman who was sitting there was telling me how they climb on top of the tree. And their younger ones were taken to Sigona Golf Club, the current club. That time it was not a golf club, it used to be a home of one of the settlers. And there was a cook there who was a Ruo. The guy was given all the chicken in bags. The family strangled the chicken and took them to the man and the younger children and said, keep this family there because we may never come back. Then I asked them, how are you sure that he was going to keep his children, he was not going to go away with the children? He said, even though there were a lot of tension among people of different tribes, there were relationships that were very brotherly relationships. And they knew that those children, when they are there, they will be completely safe. He would take care of them the way he would have taken care of his own children. So when they all got to the field, this couple remained on top of the tree where they stayed for 4 days. And I was asking them, won't you fall asleep? Weren't you afraid of animals? They said, the first thing, you don't even think about sleeping. You're already so traumatized, you are so scared you can't even fall asleep. But in the meantime, the people who sat on the field, they were the father of the first Attorney General, called Josiah Jojo, pleaded with the settler, the deal not to shoot the people. And so after lengthy negotiation, then the people were set free. And they agreed, there was some punishment that were done, but they were freed. So some of these incidents, you don't read them anywhere. You don't even hear about them. One of the reasons we don't hear about them is because many of those people took an oath to never talk about what actually happened. The other thing is that they were so traumatized by the incident that happened during that time that today, even when they are speaking in such a group, they still whisper. And when they find that I'm inquiring more about them, initially they were not very sure how to trust to share this information with me, but they do share a lot of information, particularly what went through the detention camp. I have read about the Nazi camp, concentration camp. I can today say there were no difference between what was happening in the Nazi concentration camp and what was happening in the detention camp in this country. Well, I don't know whether there is anything else that of interest.
Oh, okay. That was a good work going on there with the elderly people. Now, maybe I just want to know how and why did you decide to carry on with this work? And I know it has something to do with how the elderly are being treated currently and how they used to be treated back then. So kindly just elaborate on that, please.
There are various reasons why I started doing this. One, that incident, when I saw this woman, it triggered the feeling I have for people who are aged and my understanding of the isolation. I learned about this isolation of old people many years ago when I was a student in the US. I was given a job, and it was interesting when I arrived in the state. There are two things I have never had before. I had never had the word restaurant, I had not had the word restroom, and I had not had the term restaurant. Restaurant, restroom, and rest home. So a few months after I was there, a lady the family I was staying with, they told me they found a job from a friend. And I was told to go and wear white uniform, white socks, and white cap. So I got there, and when I arrived there, for me, I had no idea where we were going, but we went to a place that was up the hills, beautiful, beautiful landscape, beautiful houses. And when we got outside there, as we drove through the driveway, I saw a whole bunch of old people. Their heads were bent like this. You could actually think they are all praying. And they hadn't even noticed the vehicle that was passing by when we drove in. And as soon as we drove, the car was parked, and I was quickly taken into a place. There was a dining, a huge dining. It had roses, flowers, and nice tablecloth and cutleries. So I figured this must be then a restaurant. So I'm coming to work in a restaurant because nobody even told me where I was going to work. Immediately, the lady who was the owner of this place took me and said, let me show you how you're going to deal with this, the kind of work you'll be doing. There were some old people who were sitting watching TV. She grabbed quickly one of them, and then she dragged the woman, and the woman was screaming, screaming, screaming. She was taken to the bathroom. She was told to hold the bars. She removed her diapers, and the diapers, the way she removed them, it was really in a very fast way that it started bleeding. And then she showed me how quickly you hose her body, and then you put a diaper, and then you powder her, and then you put a diaper. The whole thing, as I was watching it, I was going through a shock. I could not even figure out what she's talking about. Is she telling me to be doing this? Can she expect me to take off the clothes of an elderly woman, which is a taboo in my community? You're never even supposed to see a naked body of an old person. So I got all confused, but yet I did not know what to do. So then she told me, then she took one of them, she took them to the room, and she gave them medication. And she said, and this woman, one of them was trying to tell me something, and she said, don't listen to their story. They have so many stories, and don't bother to listen to all those stories because there will be too many, and you'll not be able to achieve what you're trying to achieve. You'll not be able to work if you sit and listen to their stories. So the next day when I came on my shift, the girl who was working with me, I was only 21 and she was 18 years. And by the time I finished the second person, she was doing the 8th one. And the way she was dragging and moving them, and it was the speed, I couldn't believe it. And then she also started telling me that you don't sit and listen, you do the work. You do work and you finish what you have to do. So as you continue to work, I found myself feeling more and more uneasy. And at first, because I had never changed somebody's diaper, I even had a problem eating. I lost the appetite. So I couldn't eat. And I was very, very disturbed throughout. The boss started noticing that I was either very slow or very uncomfortable with the job. And she kept on warning me. She kept on, each day I was warned once or twice about my pace of work. And finally, at the following week, we are supposed to be paid. You are never paid the first Friday. You are paid the next Friday. So by the second Friday, when it was my payday, she told me, I don't even think you deserve to be paid anything because ever since you came here, you have not worked well and you have not even achieved very much. So I said to her, please, let me tell you the truth. You don't even have to fire me. You don't need to fire me. I have quit. I can't work here. So she called the lady, the family I was staying with, to report me. And by the time I got there, they were very furious with me. Like, how are you going to be earning your living if you don't want to work? I said, I can work anywhere, but not that kind of work. Anyway, I went back, and the picture remained in my mind forever. However, when I went to college, I took a class of, it was called Problem of Aging. And this class was very interesting because it filled in the gap, the missing gap of my experience there and what it was that I could not have read from a book. So we were supposed to, during that time when we were taking this class, to do some form of research. And our research was you'd go to a home and with a questionnaire and you do some interview. So it gave me a chance to also interview individual people who were old to come up with to finish my research paper. But what